All right, guys. So you're welcome to class. My name is Tochuku. You can call me T. I'm T on Slack. TEE. So at T on Slack. All right. I'll be your instructor for JavaScript basics and Node.js. All right. So I'll introduce you to JavaScript, get you comfortable with the language to an extent, and then we'll go to Node.js. All right. So today's class is about JavaScript basics, and we'll be talking about concepts like um, variables. Let me just take note of them on the screen. Data types, conditionals, control flow, and then functions. All right. So these are topics to be dealing with today. All right. And I think on Thursday, my classes will happen every Tuesday and Thursday, 11 a.m. All right. So next Thursday, we'll talk about objects, arrays, and some of those. All right. So intro to JavaScript. And I would guess that a lot of us might be a bit familiar with the language, but trust me, you are still going to get, some value from these classes. So I'd advise that you join. Okay, so yeah, what is JavaScript? I don't like doing theories, okay, because it's like the boring part of the class. But then JavaScript is that component of your website um, that makes it interactive. All right, just like you have HTML to build the structure of your page, you have CSS to make it beautiful. JavaScript makes it interactive. All right, so a lot of JavaScript instructors online would say it's like the electricity in your house. All right, I think many years ago, the popular example I was used on W3 schools was that of a light bulb. When you turn on a light bulb, it turns on, stuff like that. Okay, so JavaScript makes your website interactive. So when somebody clicks and there's a response, all of that is working with JavaScript, okay, to make it happen. All right, so that's the definition of JavaScript I will give you. There are thousands of it online. You can go to MDN docs, and you know you get what you want. All right. So when talking about JavaScript, of course, JavaScript is a programming language, even though there's a debate whether it is one or not, but I will call it a programming language. So like every language, they have constructs, okay? The English language, there's a way you construct a paragraph, there's a way you construct a clause, there's a way you construct a sentence, all right? In case you don't know, I think that is called the syntax of the language, right? So how you bring everything together, different parts of the language together to form something that makes sense. All right. So when you hear the word syntax in programming, we're simply saying the components of the language, that's syntax, all right, or the construct or the structure of the language. Okay. So if you want to understand JavaScript, I think one of the basic steps is to understand that it is a language. So um, many of the terms that are going to be coming across, if you view them in a way that, if you approach them in a way that you would approach learning a language, I think you're likely going to increase your probability of being successful, all right, at programming, okay? So for instance, you need variables, all right, to create a program. Right? It's like the most basic component of the language that you need. It's just like words. Variables are like words in English language. In English language, you need words to actually form stuff that makes sense. All right, to make a paragraph, to make a sentence, to form a clause, words are always involved to make any form of communication. Right? In JavaScript, variables are like that. So please, most of the analysis I would make, if you stretch them, it might not be true. But I hope that you get the point I'm trying to make. All right. I'm trying to say that you cannot work without variables. Okay. You cannot work without variables. Just as words convey meaning, the variables convey meaning. The variables store things that are meaningful. All right. In the JavaScript language or in any programming language. I think all the programming languages I've heard of, they have the concept of variables. All right. But if you go online, people will define variables as a box or a container that stores values. Okay. So it's a box that stores values. All right. So, but me, I'm going to say variables are references to values. That's how I usually define variables. Right. A variable is a reference to a value. So, for instance, let me look for somebody on this call. Participants. Okay. We have Ayodele on this call, right? So let's say I have a variable Ayodele. This is the variable. Okay. Now, if I say Ayodele, Ayodele is referring to somebody on the call, right? Referring to a person. Okay. Ayodele is referring to a person on this call, and that person has different attributes. And the most fundamental attribute of that person is that person is an individual, all right, that is alive, that is sane. So when I say Ayodele, this person will respond to me, all right. Ayodele is the variable name, okay. And when I mentioned Ayodele, he will be the one to respond to me. So this is a reference to something, all right. This is an entity. In the same way, in JavaScript, we could have Ayodele, and then Ayodele will point to a person, all right? We could have a variable like num1, for instance, okay? And then that will point to 1, okay? We could have Ayodele, as I rightly said, and Ayodele will point to an object, okay? We'll point to an object. Sorry, try to edit this. All right, so it has these values: name, Ayodele. All right, age, Ayodele, I'm sorry, 16. And I could say hobbies. All right, so that would be an array of reading and sleeping. All right, and then we could say um, greeting or grades. Let's just say grades. Okay, and then this is a function that says a function that says I'm going to console the log hello class. All right, that's how I really grades. Okay, and then I think this is all. All right, I'm going to take this down. So let's see. All right, so these are the variables you see on this side, on the left, and the values that they point to are what you see on the right. Okay, we could have another variable that we call scores. So the scores, say we're trying to store the scores of the students in class, and then scores will point to an array, okay, that has the value. So say somebody scored 120, somebody scored 20, somebody scored 50, somebody scored 60, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is variable. These are the variables, variable names, and then they point to values. Okay, so that's how JavaScript operates. So I'm not the best user of Zoom, so I'm going to be a bit rusty on the call trying to navigate Zoom. Okay, so yeah, these are variables and these are the values. All right, just like in normal in the material world, you say Gary. Gary refers to something of value, right? Something that can be retrieved. Okay, you say container. All right, it refers to a container. All right, names are things that you use to refer to entities. All right, that is how JavaScript, that's how it works in JavaScript. All right, variables always refer to values. And now they can, as you can see from this illustration, they can refer to different types of values. All right, so let's say um, 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 name, or let's say user name. All right, and this will point to the value t. Okay, so you see the types of value that your variable points to differ. All right, there are values that accommodate multiple values in them, or yeah, they have multiple values in them, and there are types of variables that can also store multiple values, all right, in key value pairs. So this is a key, the name is a key, and this is a value. This is a key, and this is a value, all right. This is a key, and this is a value. Okay, so this is another type of value that is able to store multiple different values in itself. Okay, but then when you look at these guys are simpler. All right, there is num1 that points to 1, and there is username that points to t. So if you look at these two types of values, you will see that one of them is simple, the other one is complex. All right, one of them is simple, the other one is complex. So let's go back to our notes and see. All right, so these are variables. I'll explain what variables are to you. And if I want to write a variable, I'll do something like so let's use the values I will have here. Let's cause equals to what do I have here? So I'm just gonna copy. Let's cause equals to this, and then let me copy this in advance. So I'll say let I or delay, let I or daily equals to this. All right, and then I'll say let num1 equals 1. So let num1 equals 1. All right, and then I would say let username equals t. All right, so let username equals t. Okay, so I'll zoom out a bit so that we can accommodate all the variables for now. So these are the variables that we created. The blue underline you see here, don't mind it. It is because Ayodele is not an English word, so it's not recognizing it. All right, yeah, but it says cause is being recognized. Okay, so just forget about that underline. But you see the idea, right? This is how you create variables. See, I did call you. I don't have an answer for that. Oh, please. All right, so let's cause this, and let's delay. Right, so that's how you create variables in JavaScript. Now in JavaScript, you can create variables using different keywords. So if you look at the example I gave you here, you just saw the variable name, right? But when you're about to translate that into a program, you need a keyword to let JavaScript know that I am about to create a variable, all right? And that's what you use the let keyword for, okay? I think my points, okay, it doesn't have an intelligence, all right? So you have let, you have const, you have var, all right? So these are different ways to create variables in JavaScript. Okay, so I could have said let scores equals this, or I could have said let var equals let var scores equals this. All right, and I could have said const scores equals this. Okay, so now there's something that I like to do. I like to teach my students how to read their programs like they are reading simple English language. Okay, that way it will help you become a better developer, so that when you write codes, people can easily go through your codes. Your codes will make sense to be read. All right, so in this case, we're saying let scores be equal to this. Right? If you did any form of maths, even the basic form of maths, you know that when you say something is equal to something, it means that anywhere this value is referred to, it will be where this name, which is cause, is referred to, this value is what we're talking about, right? That's variables, even in the concept of maths. Okay, so we say let scores equal to this. So anywhere we refer to scores, like come down here now and say console.log, that means log scores to the console. All right, log scores to the console. What happens is that if you come here, you see scores in the console. So this is browser console, and you see scores logged out. All right. So notice that I did not say log this. I didn't say directly that this should be logged to the console. All right, which does the same thing. I said let log scores. It is scores. Let log scores to the console. Now, this tells you that anywhere this scores name is referred to, it is actually the value that will respond to us. To fetch the value and replace this mention with the value before executing the program to you. All right, that's very important to know. Just like when you say Ayodele, the person who responds to you is Ayodele, it is not the name. So we're not logging this name scores like this to the console. No, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we are getting the value that it refers to, and we are logging it to the console. All right, that is very important. So let's cause equals this. All right, we would have said variable. So var for variable scores is equal to this. So that's another way to declare a variable. Say variable scores, which is var scores, is equal to this. All right, the same thing happens when you mention scores. Okay, that's what you get. And I could have said constant scores equals this. All right, so this is let there be light creation, like you're creating something. Let, all right, var, you're simply making a statement. Variable this should be equals to this. All right, and then constant this should be equals to this. Now there are different how do I put it now? So you will get different behaviors depending on how you declare your variables. All right, you get different behaviors depending on how you declare your variables. Okay, so if I say const scores, I'm saying that scores should be a constant. And you know that if you're a science student, or I think if you're a student, you know that constants don't change. Okay, so constants don't change. All right, so if you say you declare a variable as a constant, it means that it will never change. All right, it will never change. Okay, and that is true for JavaScript. But if you say var, all right, var behaves like let. It is just a simple variable that can change, but then there are other consequences to using var as opposed to let. And I think in the coming lectures, when we talk about hoisting and JavaScript execution context and some of those stuff, we are going to come back to the consequence of using either var or let. All right, so for now, we're going to be using let in our programs. Okay, so here we are. Now, the other thing I would like to tell you about is variable naming conventions. All right, so there are some rules or conventions. Conventions means they are not rules, actually. That means you can choose to break them, but there are consequences for breaking them. Okay, so there are some conventions when naming variables. When naming variables, for instance, you don't put space between the names. Say for instance, I have a compound word. So my variable consists of a compound word. I'm trying to think of one. Or let's say it consists of two words, right? So um, say full name, full name. Some might argue that it is one word, but let's just assume that it's two words. So we say full name, all right? This is wrong. You can't declare a variable like this, all right? Spaces cannot be in between, okay? And this is not even a convention. This is a rule. You can't put space. It's going to give you an error. Okay, so if you go back here now, let's see. You see Pretty here is already shouting that we have an error in our code, all right? So you can't do this, all right? So what you do is you join the two words together, all right? But you have to capitalize the first letter in every other word apart from the first, okay? I've said a lot, but simply this is how it looks like, all right? You see full name. So the first word has all lowercase. The easier way for you to understand this is to note that the first, in fact, if the variable name is made up of one word, just one word, then it should be all lowercase, all right? If it's made up of more than one word, every other word you add has to start with an uppercase. So name starts with an uppercase, okay? Um, I don't know why it's hard to think of variables that may have multiple words in them. Okay, some days are like that. But say we have something else, top added to this one. You see that top with T will start with capital letter, N starts with capital letter, T starts with capital letter, and as you add words to the name, the first letter of those additional words will start with capital letter, and this is what is called camel case. All right, camel case. I think it is called that because of how it is. You see the variable. See, it goes like this, just like your camel that has a hunch back, kind of. All right. So it's like you write the first letter of the word here, like number of. All right. So you see how the O raises up above the baseline of the N. All right. And then so on and so forth. That's why it's called camel casing. Okay, so that is one of them. And there are several of them, but our time is fast spent. This class ends by 12, so I'm going to ask you to please read them up. All right, don't start your variables with numbers like this. Don't start your variables with numbers. That is wrong. You can add numbers in between the texts. All right, if you want, you can add it at the end of the text if you want, but you don't start your variable with numbers. Okay. All right, so that is that. As they come to mind during the class, I'm going to mention them. Okay, so let's go back to scores. Okay, now to the next concept. In fact, before I move to the next concept, let me take questions. We have the question. Yeah, I see suggestions here. First name, my scores. Awesome. 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 All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if you have questions, I'll take one or two questions before we move forward from here. Please, if you understand what we're saying so far, like if the class is making sense, please comment on the chat so I know that you are following. If you have questions, you can indicate and I would take your questions. Okay. So having said that, let's move to the next um, point of focus for today. Okay, so we have data types. We have data types. So all right, nice. Okay, the meaning of constant is something that won't change. That's the meaning of constant. All right. Something that does not change. Like pi is a constant. So you have pi equals to 3.14 something something according to maths. All right. So pi is a constant that doesn't change unless somebody comes in the future and does something different with this life. But for now, that's pi. Has always been that. So constant does not change. Okay. So over to data types. So data types simply refer to the type of data that a variable is referring to. All right. The type of data that a variable refers to. That is data type. And we have different data types in JavaScript. Okay. We have strings. We have numbers or integers. Integers. We have boolean. All right. We have, what is there again now? We have undefined. We have null. We have functions. We have sorry guys for that break. Can you give me 2 minutes? Give me 2 minutes to quickly sort out something around here. All right, I'm back. So we have functions, we have objects, we have arrays. Yeah, I think we have symbol, and are these all of them? I think so. So these are all different data types in JavaScript. Let me comment them. Go back and comment. So these are all different data types in JavaScript. So what are strings, right? A string is a group of characters that are delimited or delimited by quotes. So this is a string, okay? So a character is just a single text. That's what I mean by character, all right? When you have a group of them together that are now enclosed with quotes, that's how you form a string, all right? So a group of characters delimited by quotes. So it can either be single quotes, it can be double quotes, right? It could be a backticks, okay? But this is how you form strings in JavaScript, all right? And you should know that the type of quotes that you use on the left has to be the same with what you use on the right, all right? Unless you're going to get an error. So you can't mix them together, all right? So that's how you define strings in JavaScript, a group of text delimited by quotes, all right? So if I say console.log type of username, for instance, you're going to see on the console. So what I'm simply saying is log type of username to the console. That's how to read it. Okay? And if you come here, you see that it is telling us that that variable is a string, right? So I could also say log type of num1 to the console. And you'll see that it will tell us that that is a number. All right, so it's a number. I'm going to use the term number here. All right, it's a number. So numbers are numbers, all right? So if you have 1.0, it's a number in JavaScript. If you have 1, it's a number. If you have IE 0, whatever, those are numbers, all right, in JavaScript, okay? So there are different types of numbers in JavaScript, but they are all grouped under the type number, okay? The next thing is Boolean. All right. Yeah, if you have any history with logic,
Hello,
you
please.
remember.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Please, can you come again with the definition for strings value? Sorry, string data types.
Okay. I say strings, or a string is a group of characters delimited by quotes, all right, or enclosed in quotes. Okay, group of characters enclosed in quotes. That's a string. Okay,
Okay, when you say characters, does it mean like alpha numeral?
so it could be, yeah, you're correct. So numbers or alphabets, yeah. As long as they are enclosed in strings, in quotes, you form the string. So this could have been 10 and whatever. It's still a string. Okay.
Okay, sorry, one more thing. You mean
Yeah, go ahead.
for strings, you can actually space them as long as they're in quotes.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct.
okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So we have Boolean. Boolean consists of true or false. All right. So it's either true or false. All right. Very simple. It's either true or false. So if I say type of username now, it should say Boolean. All right. As programmers, you should notice things, as they happen. All right. So the type of the variable depends on what it points to. If I say Ayodele, that points to a human being. All right. So the type of entity that name refers to is a human being. All right. If I say, there's some names that are now used for dogs and humans. If not, before, when life was easy, it used to be distinct. But you get my point, I mean. So in fact, the name, so that even makes more sense, right? The name doesn't tell you the type of the variable. It is the value that name points to that tells you the type of the variable. Okay. So yeah, that even makes perfect sense. So even if I say Jack, just because I said Jack doesn't mean you can tell the type of entity that Jack belongs to. All right. You have to know what responds first. So if I say Jack, if it's a dog that responds, that name refers to a dog. All right. So the type of that variable is a dog. All right. In JavaScript, that's how it is. If I change what the variable points to, right, if it points to a different type of value, that the type of that variable has changed. All right. So if I say this is false, like this now, so false has become a string because it is enclosed in quotes. So if you come here, you see it's a string. All right. If I remove the quotes, you see that false has a meaning. All right. It's a boolean, and you check, it tells you that that is a boolean. If I say true, you'll see that that is also a boolean. All right. Now, when we come to ideally now, for instance, ideally points to what we call an object. So paste this here, ideally, and you see that that points to an object. Okay. And undefined would be a case where you have a variable without a value. So I say I'll call this um, say class name, for instance, and then there's no value. Okay, this is possible. So I've declared something, but I've not attached a value to it. And if you come here and you say type of class name, you see that class name has the type undefined. All right. So undefined means that there is no value attached to it explicitly. All right. So what the program or JavaScript engine is going to do is that it's going to attach this undefined to it by itself. All right. So yeah, that's undefined for you. Sorry, undefined without quotes. Going to attach undefined to it. All right. Okay, so undefined means there's no value explicitly given to it. All right. And then there is null. Null
Sorry,
means, okay.
sorry to cut you short. I don't know. I used to indicate that I have a question to ask. And going back to you, declaring this variable, which is called username. I thought
Yeah.
you said when you bring together two words, the second word should come, it should be camel casing.
Yeah.
Okay, why isn't username in camel casing?
So username is a valid full what's it called now? So username is a word, all right? It's a complete word. Okay. So if you are forming two words together to become a variable name, that's when you use camel casing. So as you can see, my what's it called? My checker, my spell
Text
checker is
editor.
not complaining. Yeah, it's not complaining that this is not a word. But you see, Ayodele is not a recognized word. So
Okay,
unknown
okay.
word, Ayodele. All right, so this is a valid word. And I think full name also is. But I used it for that example because I was, okay, you see, full name is not even
Not,
recognized. So in this
not
case, this
okay.
should be full name. All right. So that makes sense, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. So you see class name now is null. So when you give null, it means that you are explicitly saying that this variable points to nothing. That's when you use null. So this is usually a point of confusion, but it is not, it is not that serious. So don't really get stuck there. All right. Undefined and null. People usually tend to confuse undefined and null. So use undefined, you shouldn't use it at all. Undefined is reserved for the JavaScript engine. All right. It is going to any variable you create without giving a value. JavaScript engine is going to assign undefined to it. All right. But null is when you want to explicitly say that you should point to nothing. That's when you use null. And that settles the case. All right. So no confusion there. Okay. So if we say type of now, class name, you see that it is now, sorry, class name, you see that it is now object. Now, this is a mistake by the JavaScript language. When I say mistake, it has been admitted, I think, by the creator of JavaScript that null being an object is a mistake. So that's one. When you go online and see people ranting about JavaScript, this is one of the few things that they will rant about. And there are many gotchas um, in the JavaScript language, but trust me, it is nothing. All right. So null is shown as an object, but it's not an object. All right. So that's one of the caveats, all right, that exist in the language. Okay. So moving on from that, we have symbol. How do we create symbol again? We have forgotten. There are some things that we seldom use, like we almost never use them unless you're writing something really advanced. All right. I think this is how to write symbols. So if I check username, this will be a symbol. All right. So yeah, that's a symbol. Okay. Symbols are used to create unique values, but the explanation of it is quite technical that I would not want to mess up our lecture with that detail. And this is one of those things that you almost never use unless you are very advanced, you know, JavaScript developer. Okay, so you are trying to create a library or some stuff, some of the sort. All right, so we have functions. I've not showed you functions so far. So there's function. Let's see the time. Man, time is fast spent. So there's function. So these are you create functions. See function greet, for instance. And then you see let's say console.log hello users. Okay. So if I check the type of greet, you see that greet is a function. All right. So that's it. So I would not talk about functions now because they have their it has its own um, session. All right. So I won't talk about functions now, but you see that we have a variable type that is called a function, and the way it is created looks quite different from how all other variables I've created so far, have been created. Okay. But then there are different ways to create functions. You can use the function keyword, you can also use the let and say let greet equals to this, like this, and then that's also a function. All right. But when we get to functions and start talking about it, you would see that, you know, uh, there is more to the functions that meets the eyes. Okay. So the next guy is objects. I think I've talked about objects as Ayodele. So this is an object. An object is made up of key value pairs. Key value pairs. So this is the key. This is the value separated by commas. All right. The key value pairs are separated by commas. You have name, Ayodele, age, 16, hobbies, like that. And this is special syntax in JavaScript. Then when we start talking about objects, we will get into those. All right. If I say type of Ayodele, that's an object. Okay. That's a real object, unlike no coming as an object. Okay. Then scores is an array. All right. Arrays and objects are something that you need to really understand if you're going to be a very exceptional JavaScript developer. All right. But we'll get to those in due time. So type of scores, and you see that it shows as an object. That's another caveat. So just note the different points. All right, null shows like an object. All right, that's a point of pause. Arrays show you an object. That's another point of concern. All right, and I'm going to deal with this throughout the journey. So as we go in the journey, I'm going to deal with this. If I start delving into them now, a lot of you might forget what you understand and dwell on what you don't understand, because that's like, I think, the nature of humans. Like we like to dwell on the things we cannot control instead of dwelling on the things we can control. So I like to bring to mind that you understand string, you understand number, you understand Boolean, you understand undefined, you understand symbol, you understand functions, you understand objects. All right. At least when I say you understand, means they were simple enough for you to grasp. The guys you don't understand, just put them at the back seat. If you take this advice from me, your journey is going to be smooth, right? If you choose to dwell on those guys and say, oh, what is it? You get confused, you get irritated, and then you forget that you understood a larger portion of the class. So if you look at this class now, this is like, let's just say that's like 10% of the class that you don't understand, all right, that it's not clear enough, okay? So you cannot nullify the 90% with the 10%. Just keep that guy aside, and as we progress, they are going to make sense, okay? So to get more string real estate, I'm going to delete these guys from here so that I can have space, all right? And then we put this here. And then we have conditionals, right? So conditionals are used to make decisions, okay? So at different points in your program, you might want to do something different based on a particular condition, okay? So just like we could say, if, so if it's raining, all right? We could say if it's raining, sorry, excuse me. So we say if it's raining, if it's raining, all right, then console.log go out. All right, so for those who like rain, they go out. Else, stay indoor. All right, so if it's all right, so if it's raining, go out, or else you stay indoor. All right. Now, if we check our console, you see that it says go out. So let me comment this out so that it doesn't interfere with our program. And then you see it says go out. All right. So you said, let me read this program like English. If it's raining, log go out to the console. else log stay indoor to the console. All right, so that's why it's logged go out. All right, because it's raining, it's true. There's a technicality to this. All right, and I'm going to rewrite this in a way that will make more sense to you. So let's say we have a variable called it's raining. All right, or we can just say it's raining. All right, this is valid in JavaScript, right? So true. So what would have done is say if it's raining, rain, then it says go out. Else thing. So if you check now, you see go out. All right. I told you that when the program executes, every instance of a variable will be replaced by its value. All right. So in this case, it's raining refers to true. That's the value. So this would turn to true. Okay. So this would run and this wouldn't. If you check, my editor is smart enough to know that this part of the code will not run. All right. So your conditions can either evaluate to true or false, one of two values. Either is true, either is false. If it is true, the first part of the conditional statement is going to run. If it is false, the second part is going to run. All right. So if I change this to false now, out of the box, you see the first part has been grayed out. It shows that the second part will run. So if you come back here, you see it says stay indoor. All right. But usually you wouldn't come here and say true or false, just like that. You would have a variable. This makes sense to be a variable because it's something that can likely change. You know that the rain doesn't fall forever. So at some point, this is going to point to true. At some other point, it's going to point to false. So it's a variable. And that's why we have this if condition. If it's not a variable, you won't say if. You would likely say when. We're talking about English now. You likely say when the rain falls, or yeah, when the rain falls, because you know the rain is definitely going to fall. All right. But if it's a variable, something that could happen or could not happen, you use variables. All right. So that's why we did not, it wasn't right for us to come here directly and say it's raining. All right. As a program, this doesn't make sense because this is always going to evaluate to true and false. We'll talk about that when we talk about truthy and falsy values in JavaScript. All right. So this is always going to evaluate to true. So the first guy is going to run. Okay. And that's why we also did not come here to say false or true, because that would be something static. So there will be no need for this condition because you already know the outcome by typing true directly inside here or false directly inside here. But when we use a variable, it means that we acknowledge that this can change at any time. And based on the current value at the time when this program is being run, the program is going to choose between these two blocks, first block and the second block. If this evaluates to true, choose the first block. If it evaluates to false, choose the second block. All right, so I have 6 minutes more. I'm going to try to run through this very quickly. And hopefully I'll drop a video. Yes, I'll drop a video to do more in-depth explanation of these concepts. So watch out for that video. You see it dropped you see it dropped on the Slack. All right. So even if we're unable to complete everything, I'm gonna drop the video. So control flow has to do with loops. All right, it has to do with loops. Usually your program would run from top to bottom. All right, your program will run from top to bottom. Okay. If there's nothing impending or there's no error in between, it will just run from top to bottom directly. But we can choose to say, when you get to line 30, for instance, we want you to loop for 10 times. All right. What that means is we have something like this. As long as I is less than 10, I want you to loop this block of code. Yes. All right. So if I open my console, you see that I have yes 0, yes 1, yes 2, yes 3, to ES9. All right. What we said here is we want you to repeat this line 31 10 times. That's what I've said. Because of time, I won't be able to explain the for loop syntax completely because I like to take my time to explain it to you and you will understand it forever. Okay. But because of time. So what will happen is that in the video that I will drop, you are going to see the explanations for control flow. In fact, everything from top to bottom, but it's going to be more in depth. All right. So we'll take more time in that video. And then functions. The functions are used to run a block of code. All right. So block of code that you can run multiple times. So if I bring, so greet is an example of a function. Let me use the simpler syntax. And with time we'll graduate into this the other one. So greet is a function, and what it does is that it's making this line 15. All right, all the codes within its opening and closing brackets. So this could be multiple lines. All right, as long as it's within the opening and closing brackets, this function helps us to repeatedly run this block of code whenever we want at any time. So it's like you having a waiter, all right, that you can always call to get something for you, all right? So that's functions. So if I say greet, I can call greet multiple times and it's going to run that code. Say greet, what's the time now? We have 3 minutes. All right, say greet, and if we check, it's saying hello user, all right? I can call it again, greet again, and then to do it as many times as I want. Hello user, hello user, hello user. Oh, but that doesn't seem very useful. So we can say greet name. So we say greet a person, right? We provide the name while calling the function. So this would translate to, I would write this like this. And when calling the function, we provide a name that it should greet. So I'll say greet Ayodele. If I say, you say hello user Ayodele. All right. So let's get rid of user. It says hello Ayodele. So if you come and see hello Ayodele. So I've made this function customizable. Now you can work, do some mental work, and you see that this is applicable to many stuff. So I had 2 numbers, and if you take num1, num2, all right. So when this runs, we want to return the result of that addition. So we'll say num1 plus num2. And if I run this function and say 2 plus 2, 2 plus 2, no, sorry, 2 comma 2, right? Num1, num2. So you see num1, num2, right? So num1 comma num2. What you see is 4 being printed to the console. Okay, so that's functions for you, but do not fret. I'm going to come back and we visit these things with a video and send to you. All right. So we don't have time. I think there should be another class using the same link, so we don't want to waste their time. Please, I'm very sorry that we didn't have time to take questions. I will take your questions on Slack. So you can drop your questions on Slack. So before you drop your questions, I would put a thread. I think the people we have here are both from front end and back end. So I'll create a thread on front end and back end channel. And then for the questions, so that all the questions will be in a thread and they're easy to access. Thank you so much for your time. I think we'll stop here.
T.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
T.
Okay, just a quick question. This JavaScript basically is just like I want to really understand. We've not started anything on the Node.js, right?
No,
It's
no,
just,
no, no.
okay, just basic JavaScript. Okay.
Yeah. All right, guys.